All right, welcome back to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I am Jason Green, bringing you brand new interviews right here on YouTube. This one means a lot to me. How many times can you remember the first time you saw a movie? You can watch it again, maybe 40 years later, and it brings you back to the time you saw it first. That you still quote that movie in your daily life, weekly life. I don't know. There's only a few movies like that. My guest today is fortunate enough to be part of one of those iconic movies, in addition to a long career. And if he taught us anything, he taught us to act. Uh, Wherever you are is the place to be. And today, this is the place to be. Robert Romanus joins us right after this. All right, please welcome Robert Romanus. How are you, Robert?
Good, Jason. How are you, buddy?
Thank you. I really appreciate this. You were hosting the bash at the Rainbow Bar and Grill, and we had a mutual friend, Sean Clark, and I said, I have got to meet Robert Romanus. I'm such a fan of the movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And so Sean introduced us, and I was fortunate that you were up to come on and chat about your career and your life a little bit. And so thank you so much for doing this.
Sure.
Now, we'll go back. You grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, right?
Yeah, just outside of Hartford, West Hartford, Connecticut.
When did you know you wanted to be an actor? Because you're a musician as well.
Well, I came out to Hollywood in 1976 as a drummer. And well, I got a job at a restaurant where you had to sing. All the waiters and busboys and cooks and everybody had to get up and sing a song. And I was awfully shy. So I took an acting class to get over my shyness. And that's where I kind of fell in love with the idea that I could be anything I wanted to be on stage. All the things I have a hard time being in life, I could be on stage and have a great excuse.
Yeah, the character is the excuse. You can express yourself through it.
Exactly.
It's interesting because you say you moved. It was 1976. That was the bicentennial. It was a big year in America. And
that's right.
Is it true that they had a bus fare for $76 anywhere you want to go?
That's right. From Fort Lauderdale. I went to Florida thinking, well, I'll get a job. I quit college. I thought, well, I'll get a job in Fort Lauderdale. All my friends will come down for spring break and we'll have a great time. And I was sitting outside of Howard Johnson's about 3 o'clock in the morning one night because I didn't have anywhere to stay. I was sleeping on the beach and about 3 o'clock in the morning, a carload of kids drove by and doused me with water balloons. So I went to the bus station where I had all my stuff was in a locker in the bus station. And when I got there, they were hanging up a sign that said, travel anywhere in the United States for $76 for the bicentennial. And I had like $80 in my pocket. So I bought a ticket thinking I'm coming out to Hollywood. I had a brother who lived out here. And that was it.
It's pretty amazing that, you hear that story, especially from musicians. Well, I'm either going to New York or I'm going to California. You chose the further of the two, but you also got the most out of your $76, I would say.
Yeah, I sure did.
How long did it take?
I think it was like 6 days on the bus. It was actually kind of cool. I'd never seen the country before like that, And yeah, it took me 6 days. I had $4 left and, could grab a sandwich somewhere. And that was it until I got to California.
Yeah, you got to California. Were you staying with your brother when you first got out there?
Well, I was living and I stayed in his garage. Cut a little hole in the door so I had a window. And I was sleeping in the garage and I was working at Shakey's Pizza.
Hmm.
And and funny enough, what happened was I had a car accident. I wasn't here long, and I was in a car accident, and I got $2,500 for the accident, right? And I needed a car, and I was sitting at a table at Joe Allen's one night with a bunch of guys, and they were all congratulating me on my $2,500.
Right. Big
And
win.
back then it was like, you had an accident. Hey, congratulations. So
Mhm.
one of the guys at the table said, I got a car. I'll sell it to you. I'll sell it to you for $2,500. And I said, what kind of car is it? He said, it's a 1958 Corvette. I said, can we go see it now? And it was like 10 o'clock at night. So we went and saw it, and I bought it on the spot. I borrowed the 2,500 because I didn't have it yet. And I bought it on the spot. And I was so excited that like a week later, I drove it back to Connecticut where I totaled it out and and then decided to come. I sold it for $2,500, all smashed up, and decided to come back to California and see if I could get another one. And I think it was at that time that I got a job at the Great American Food and Beverage Company in Los Angeles, where you would wait on a table and then you'd go up and you'd sing a nice song, and right in the middle of your beautiful serenade, someone would come up and say, "Can I change that to a rib, please?" And you'd go, "Yes, of course you can." And you keep on singing your song. So that's sort of how I got it all
Showbiz.
started.
Yeah, that's the beginning of showbiz. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
a lot of these places are not there anymore. That Shakey's Pizza, Olympic in Fairfax, I think it
That's
finally
right.
went out, but it lasted a long
Wow.
time. Mhm.
It sure did. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah, a
was the
lot.
dough boy. I'd get there at like 5 o'clock in the morning and make all the dough for the day. And so it was kind of a morning shift.
It was probably nice, no one bothering you, right?
I liked it, you
Mhm.
know,
You and the dough.
saucing up the pies, stack them, sauce them, stack them, sauce them, stack them, go home,
Now,
mindless.
it, you want, but you still, the goal was still to be a musician. You play bass, you play drums as well,
Hmm.
and guitar. You do a little. You're a triple threat. You do a little of everything. But at some
I'm like
point,
a little garage band.
a one man garage band
Yeah,
with a window cut in the garage.
in the
Yeah,
garage. Yeah,
yeah. But you met somebody who said they could be an agent. You knew someone who had an agent, an acting agent, right?
that's right. Yeah. Uh, let's see, one of those guys that I'm talking about hanging out with at night at Joe Allen's, he had an agent, and I was just kind of getting started. I'd just taken classes for a little while. And I said, if you get me an audition with your agent, I'll give you 10%. And he said, okay. So he got me an audition with his agent. And that's back in the day when you'd have to go in personally and read a monologue or something. The agent decided to take me on, and my friend said, "Don't worry about the 10%." And I think it wasn't long after that I auditioned for Fox's, uh, the movie with Jodie Foster, and I got
Yeah.
a small part. I got to play her boy. Yeah, there it
Yeah, we're taking a look. It's
is.
funny, I've had a few people on the show who are Foxes related. Frank Domino from the band Angel.
Yeah,
Angel
right,
was one of the bands that everyone went to see. He's been on the
right.
show a few times. And then Cherie Curry from the Runaways, she's been on the show as well. You've had quite an interesting career co-starring along people that would go on to be big stars at this time. Even Jodie Foster was on her way to having a career, but certainly wasn't the Academy Award winner she would become. But what was it like making this movie?
Well, it was terrifying for me because the truth is I had no real experience, and I didn't even know what a mark was.
Hmm.
And I had to walk down this hallway that had like 200 people in it. We're at the concert, and I have to hit a mark and say my line to Jodie Foster. And I think it took 28 takes because I couldn't find the mark. and I got everybody on overtime. Everybody was pissed off at me. Finally, I hit the mark. Got the, you know, I was so embarrassed and just horrified. And I had one more scene to do a few days later, and the director came into the trailer, and he said, you know, just calm down, Bob. Calm down. You did it in the audition. I know you can do it. So, so that was kind of horrifying for me, but I got through it. Jodie Foster was awfully sweet, and Cherie Curie and Scott Baio, all the people that were on it were really nice people. You know, they made it a better experience than I was having, actually.
And they had some experience, even though they were young. You know, Scott Baio was already on Happy Days, and I
Happy
think
Days, yeah,
Bugsy, I think, was the movie with him and Jodie Foster.
that's right, yeah,
So I mean, they were coming off of that, and you know, I don't
yeah.
think Fox has got the attention maybe it deserved. I feel like that's one of those movies that could be up there with The Last American Virgin and these other kind of
Well, you
Fast
know,
Times.
it's based on a true story. One of the girls, there were four girls in the valley. One of the girls' father was a screenwriter, Gerald Ayres, and this was actually born out of one of the events of these four girls and what had happened. So I think it's a really good movie. I think it's a great movie to watch if you want to see what life was like in the valley in the 70s.
Hmm.
You know, so yeah, I've always thought it was kind of underrated and much better than it should have been more seen than it was.
Yeah. Well,
You
people
know,
can watch it now. You know, the home streaming. Everyone has an option. So that movie comes out in 1980. Now, Fast Times comes out. Well, you've probably shot Fast Times in 1981. I think the end of the year. In between that time, were you doing other projects?
uh, yeah, ask me that again because I lost your picture I was looking for. What
Oh
was
yeah,
the
I was saying that between Foxes comes out in 1980. Fast Times begins filming, I think, late 81. What were you
mhm.
doing in between those two?
Well, I wasn't working at all. You know, I think I was waiting tables at that restaurant, the Singing Waiters, and this is a funny story. My mother came to visit me, right? And this was back in the day when I don't know if you know of Schwab's Pharmacy.
Mm.
Uh, used to be this famous little pharmacy up on Sunset at the corner of Sunset and Crescent Heights. And they had, it was a pharmacy, but they also had a little diner. And all, you know, actors and producers and everybody used to hang out there for breakfast every morning. So my mother came out one day and I said, "What would you like to do?" She said, "Well, I want to go to Schwab's because it's famous for having discovered Lana Turner, I guess." Um, so I said, "Well, okay, come on, we'll go get breakfast." And we're sitting there having breakfast. And this is right around the time when HBO had just started and Fox's was running on HBO. And I'm sitting there with my mother and we're having breakfast. And this guy walks by and he goes, "Hey, saw you on TV last night. You were pretty good." I said, "Oh, well, thanks." He said, "Do you have an agent?" I said, "No." He said, "You want one?" I said, "Okay." His name was Ray Rappa. Ray Rappa, and he had a little office down on Melrose, and his secretary was a phone machine. So I said, "Okay, yeah, We'll work together." I think maybe the second or third audition he sent me on was Fast Times, and I auditioned for that film. Must have been 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Once every week, I would go in and you know improv scenes and do all the scenes that were written and you know Amy Heckerling put me in makeup and wardrobe and there was a kind of a battle between I think it was Art Linson and Amy Heckerling. Art thought I was a little too old for the part. Amy really
How old
liked
were
me for the part. I
How
was
old were you?
26.
26. Okay.
26. Um, and so I think after I mean, it was very emotional because, I'd go in and I'd give a great audition, and then I'd go home and I wouldn't hear anything for like a week. And I figured, well, okay, I didn't get it. That's showbiz. And then I get a call. Well, they want to see you again. So I get all excited and I go in and, they're putting me in makeup and everything. And a week goes by and I don't get a call. And I figure, oh, well, I didn't get it. And I get a call. And this happened for like 6 weeks. So finally, after the final time I went in, I looked at all of them and said, I think I could do a really nice job with this role. And I would love to do it, but I'm not going to come back again for you. And it was right there that Art Linson said, welcome aboard. And so finally, I was hired on, and that was that.
A part that no one could imagine anyone else playing. This is something that you were so identified with. I think it's a gift. Maybe it could be a times too, because you were so known as Mike Damone, and people quote you, and you probably everywhere you go, you still look the same. If people know it's you, they want to hear the 5-point plan. They want to know what to order for dinner. How many people have gone on a date and ordered for the date because of what they learned from you? The story that I'm fascinated by is that Cameron Crowe, when he was 22, went back to high school. He enlisted as a senior under a different name, and he said that he was studying the kids in school and that somebody gave him the 5-point plan.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I recall, may not be true, but I recall him sitting with him on the set one day and him telling me about that. And he said he was sitting with a bunch of guys after school and they're having pizza or something, a bunch of the seniors. And one of the guys goes off and says to one of the other, what you need is my 5-point plan. And he goes on to describe his 5-point plan. Cameron said, I ran into the bathroom and wrote it down on a napkin. And that's why I think the movie resonates, because it really was, it really came out of the mouth of babes. It rings true. The dialogue, the conflicts that they had, they're very universal for teenagers of any decade, I think,
Oh, for sure. It's a different type of movie. It doesn't have your typical beginning, middle, and end. It's about the life of these people and what the course of that year is like for them. But there's no main antagonist. It's a different story. It might have been sort of reality based before that was even a thing. The idea that these are these people's lives and you're going to be a part of it and watch them grow in that year. Anyone from California, especially, remembers the Galleria Mall, remembers the pizza place, all of these businesses that were real. They weren't product placement. Jennifer Jason Leigh, I think, took a job at Perry's Pizza for a little while.
I think she did, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. This little movie, even though it had some big backing, and Irving Azoff, of a co-producer, says why the soundtrack is so amazing. Obviously, Irving Azoff managed the Eagles and
all
Joe
those
Walsh,
bands, yeah,
putting together, an incredible soundtrack. But it's for people who grew up in California. I'm a New Yorker, so I got it secondhand. But for people who grew up at that time, it brings back this exact place and what it was like to be a teenager in the Valley at that time. And now, so many people make their pilgrimage to these locations. I'm sure you know. I went to the house. I'm not going to lie. I went to the house with the pool. I took a picture in front of the house with the pool. Sean Clark did better than me. He actually went as a prospective buyer so he could get in the house.
Oh, no kidding.
He took it a little further. And I will also say that I lived in New York City, and you would see Phoebe Cates from time to time. She lives in New York. She's married to Kevin Kline. And we saw her come out of a Broadway show, and my friends, we said, we got to take a picture with Phoebe Cates, and let's act like we don't know who Kevin Kline is. So we took the picture with Phoebe Cates, and then afterwards we said, "Oh, Kevin, we didn't see you. Why don't you get it?" And Phoebe Cates knew exactly what we were up to. She said, "They want a picture with me. They'll take a picture with you if I'm here." And he said they're very smart men. But you've heard this your whole career, but Phoebe Cates made people of my age a man. That scene in that movie, you've heard about the
Mm.
VHS incidents at big
Yeah, yeah,
stores.
yeah.
That scene was because we had to rewind, it was worn out so bad.
That's
And
right.
could you have any idea that that scene or that movie in general was going to be such a piece of history?
No. No, you know, uh when I got it and was working on it, I thought, you know, maybe it's just another Porky's, you know, like another summer movie that's going to come out for a few weeks and but you know, I would go down to the set on the days that I wasn't working and I would watch the actors, you know, like I'd watch Sean work and I'd think to myself, wow, man, these guys they're so good.
Mhm.
I I have to go home and do my homework. I have to go do more homework on this. And just made me work harder to see all these actors, and they were so good. And but I never thought that it would be that we'd be talking about it 43 years later or whatever. You know, I don't think anybody did.
Yeah, it caught a moment in time that survived, but no one could have known. Talk about a cast where most were unknown and went on to spawn some amazing careers. Forrest Whitaker, Eric Stoltz, Nicolas Cage.
There's three Academy Award winners out of that cast:
Yeah, I mean,
Sean Penn, Forrest, and Nick Cage.
mhm.
All have won Academy Awards. You know,
And
so
Jennifer Jason Leigh went on to have a very successful career, obviously, and
yeah.
still does as well. And so, but you know, you don't know. You're working with people, and maybe they had a good eye for talent. As I said, we couldn't imagine anyone else playing Mike Damone. Couldn't imagine anyone else playing Spicoli, which is so far from
Mm.
Sean Penn that we would think.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
did
I
you?
think, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you if you ad libbed any of those lines, these famous lines.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Uh, well, the one about where'd you get that out of the hamper? That was an ad lib.
Mhm.
Uh, when he leans up against the locker in the locker room fight and he says, "I don't know what happened. I woke up, I was in a good mood."
Mhm.
Jesus, that was an ad lib. And yeah, there were a few. Cameron was really good about his script. You know, yeah, he would really work to help you make the words work. You know, um, and Amy, yeah, she's a really remarkable director. She has a way of getting the best out of each actor she's working with, and you know, really treating each actor with the you know with the you know, we're all different. We're all different actors. We all need different things to get to a point, and she really was good at getting the best out of you, whatever in whichever way she needed to. You know.
Did you know Mike Damone? Did you base your character on someone that you knew, or how did you come up with it?
Well, you know, I have a friend. I had a friend. He passed away a long time ago. Uh, in high school, and he used to just walk around, and his head would bob, and we'd be playing cards, like, you know, during the study hall or something. We'd be playing poker, and he'd be like, "Hey, a card laid is a card played," you know. And I kind of really always thought of his rhythm while I was doing Mike Damone. You know, it was kind of his rhythm that I sort of tried to get into my body and into my speech pattern, you know. Um, and you know, I always start with a character. I'll always look at it and say, you know, well, what do we have in common? What is it from me I can take to be this character? And then what are the things that I need to add in, you know? And Mark, that's where I started, was with Mark, my friend Mark from high school. And yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
and you based it and made it yours, and you had you had a great character to work with, an interesting character that I think a lot of
yeah.
people relate to.
I also watched a lot of those old gangster movies, you
Hmm.
know, with Cagney and Bogart and Edward G, because you really loved those guys, but they were bad guys.
Hmm.
But why do you love them? You know? And it always seemed to me that because there was some sort of a reason for who they were. There's a reason for them being the way they were. And even though they were bad guys, you really rooted for them and you liked them. And so I kept thinking while doing Mike Damone, he's kind of an asshole. You know, he's kind of a jerk. Well, why? You know, why? And if I could show you why, and that all has to do with him being a transplant from New Jersey. Now he's in a school in Southern California, and he's putting on this whole bravado, you know, because he's trying to, you know, make his way into this new school, and it's all bullshit. You know what I mean? But hopefully you can see that. You can see that it is kind of bullshit, and um, he's not really a bad guy. He's just making bad decisions, you
Yeah,
know?
you do see it. I think that Mike Damone is sort of an anti-hero in a sense. You know, he might come off as a jerk, but he's humbled. The love scene with Jennifer Jason Leigh, where he underperforms for a guy who talks such a big game, sort of brings him to reality. I think you do see that this is a guy who's trying to. He does want to help his friend. Up until
Yeah.
later, he's trying his best. So look, I said we're all quoting him. Everyone relates to him or knew somebody like him. So anyway, that's a testament to your work, showing that, taking the words off the page and convincing
Mm.
us to like this guy who might be a little bit of a jerk. But it works.
That was,
Now,
yeah.
go ahead.
I was going to say that was one of my goals uh, on working in the characters. How do I make this guy who's not very likable,
Mhm.
you know, or at least understandable?
Yeah, and that's not easy because it could have obviously went a different direction, but you made it work. Now, was there a fear that you would be typecast as Mike Damone? The movie comes out, were you being recognized? I mean, I would think people knew you everywhere you went.
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, I couldn't go anywhere. People recognized me, and typecasting, I guess I was a little worried about that, and I probably shouldn't have been. You know, I think there were probably some roles that I didn't take because I thought, well, I've done that. I'd like to do something different, you know. But then I think of guys like Bogart, you know,
Mhm.
who who played the same guy over and over and over again, and then finally got a great break into the leading man, you know. So I think work breeds work, and if I were younger, I would tell myself that. You know, if I could talk to my younger self, I would say, "Hey, man, work breeds work. So if you get an offer to do something, you know, maybe you should consider it."
Yeah, and you did a lot of TV after that. Before we get to that, though, I got to ask
Hmm.
one fast times question, which is, if you had to pick a concert, I'm going to read you four concerts. You got to pick one to go to. Now, you might recognize these four bands. Your choices are Van Halen, Blue Oyster Cult, Cheap Trick, and Ozzy Osbourne, who, as we know, you got busted, your character. Out of those
Yeah.
four, which one would you choose?
Well, gosh, man, every one of those would be a great concert. Honestly, I think I'd like to see Van Halen. I would
Mhm.
just like to see Eddie Van Halen and his brother. I'd like to see that live, you know.
Yeah, I thought that's what you would say. Listen, there's no wrong answer, but there's
There
so
isn't a
many.
wrong answer.
Most of my audience is a music-based audience, and but there's so much music talked about in that movie. Now, the four I just named were ones that you sold scalps, I should say, but you don't like that term. Ticket, but Led Zeppelin 4, we learned that in the 5 points.
Right.
Deborah Harry. There's so many things: music, movies, acting. So much goes into Fast Times. A lot more than just an average movie. So acting, you continue TV. You started doing a lot of guest spots. You did Chips, which was pretty soon after Fast Times, I think, right?
Yeah, I did a lot of things. I did Days of Our Lives. I did after Fast Times for like 2 years. I did the series Fame for like 3 years. Uh,
Milton Psycho Horowitz. Yeah, Fame was was a big thing back in the day. Yeah, Debbie
yeah,
Allen.
that
Mhm.
that was the most fun show, I have to say. Um, yeah, I did a lot of guest shots and a film or two in between. I sort of considered myself a journeyman. Uh, go from job to job to job, and then there was a time in show business and for actors that you could make a really nice living as a journeyman.
Yep.
Do 4 or 5 or 6 guest stars a year, and then a movie in between, and that went on for quite a long time.
Tell me about Facts of Life, 1987. You're Natalie Green's boyfriend, Snake. I think 4 episodes of that.
Yeah,
And look,
yeah,
that show was huge. Show was huge. And the
yeah.
character might have called for somebody like Damone or yourself. And so tell me a little bit about being on that show.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of honored, to be honest with you. I mean, this
Right.
is a big show for Mindy Cohn, who played Natalie. This is a few shows that are leading up to her being deflowered
Mhm.
on television. Not, you don't see it, but
Right.
and so that's a big deal. So to ask me to do that was like, well, yeah, I'm kind of honored. We can make that work. And once
Huge
again,
storyline. Yeah, it's a huge
a huge
storyline. Uh,
storyline.
Lisa Welcher, who played Blair, turned it down. Originally, they wanted her to do it. She's religious and just
Oh
didn't want to
yes,
be part of it. And she sat out those episodes, I believe.
yeah,
But
I
this
think
was,
so.
yeah, Facts of Life was a major TV show, and at this point, definitely in a peak. And so to have you come in and be part of a big arc in that show was
Well,
great.
I'm flattered. They could have a lot of people could have come in and deflowered Mindy Cohn, and they called me. So what can I say? I
It's
think
a
even
special.
I think even David Letterman mentioned it on his show one night. So yeah, it was a
How
big
funny.
deal, and I'm happy to do it. And I got to say, they were all very sweet girls. And Cloris Leachman, what a hoot, man! You know,
Yeah. It's
just
a
another good experience.
when you do these guest spots, and you did a lot of them, do people ask you about Fast Times?
Yeah, sometimes,
I mean, young
more
people
often than not.
especially. Yeah,
More
like,
often than not. Yeah.
and I forgot one music thing, a music related thing you did, which was the Six video. That's after Fast Times. Also, Kilroy was here.
That's right.
Tell me
That's
about that.
right.
Yeah.
That was a ball, man. That was just me and Tommy Shaw running around I forget where the theater was. It's down on Wilshire and Western. It's a
Mhm.
famous theater, old, beautiful, and they wanted to do a 15-minute video that opened up the concert tour of Mr. Roboto. I think that was the name of the tour. Dennis DeYoung had this whole thing about robots and, domo arigato, Mr. Roboto. So they wrote this 15-minute episode in the opening. And basically it was Tommy Shaw and I, and we're trying to, I can't even remember, something about robots.
Mhm.
But it was a ball. It was so much fun. And then after that, I hung out, got to hang out with them, Tommy Shaw. We flew back to his farm and hung out on the farm. And just what a sweet guy, man. Just a regular, very talented musician guy.
Yeah, very cool. And
Mm.
again, you're a fellow musician. So after you do TV and you had your own business for a long time after that. You went after, I mean, I don't know if you stopped acting, but you had the espresso shop, right, for a long time in California?
Yeah, and I was still acting. But,
Mhm.
I'd always had this fantasy about back in the days in the 60s in New York and how the coffee houses had great music and poetry and it was really a great place to come and express yourself, and I wanted to have a place like that in Hollywood. So I opened a little coffee house in North Hollywood, and I had entertainment 6 nights a week, different bands. I had jazz night on Tuesdays and opened my comedy on Fridays, and I had just all different type. Had even Bill Burr came down and did a whole his whole Netflix, not Netflix, but one of those specials that he did before he aired it. He came down and did it at my little coffee house for like an hour, and the place was packed with people sitting on the floors and on counters, and it was really a cool place. We had some great entertainment. The problem was a coffee shop's like it's a nickel business with dollar problems, So, you're bringing in nickels and then one of your machines breaks and it costs you $1,000. And so it really wasn't profitable. I put in so much time and work into it, but really couldn't make any money in the end. So I decided to get out,
Yeah.
you know.
What is that something that you would think about doing again? What does the future hold for you? Yeah, you learned you had enough of that. I can see that.
I've had
Um,
enough for retail, man.
mhm. What is it that what are you interested in doing now, present day?
Well, at the moment, I have my own band, right?
Hmm.
Papa's Kitchen. And me and my songwriting partner, Steve, we've been at it now for years. We got like 11, 12 CDs all over the place on the internet. And I play drums with this other band on Thursday nights. Um, I work at UCLA. I do a program at UCLA where if you're a nurse, whether you've been a nurse for 20 years or you just got out of school and you're going to UCLA to become a nurse, you have to go through this 2-day program. And I'm your patient for 2 days. And I act out a simulation, and the nurses come in and they deal with me. And then I sit down with them and I talk to them about what it's like to be your patient, what you did that was really fabulous, that made me feel great, or what you could do that would improve the experience for me as a patient. And I really enjoy that work. So
How,
I do.
now, how do you get in that? This is fascinating. How do you get in that line of work?
Well, I was doing a play,
Hmm.
and one of the guys I was working with, another actor, he had started this program with one of the head nurses at UCLA. And I said, that just sounds like so much fun. And he said, and so he brought me in on it. And he passed away a couple years later, and I became the permanent patient, really. And it's a part-time thing. I go in a couple times a month for a few days a week, and it's just a really, I just love nurses. I think that they're kind of angels, you know, it really is sort of my job to teach them uh, the TLC part of it. You know, some nurses are, you know, they're really good with, you know, giving you IVs and doing this and taking your vitals and all that medical stuff. They're very good at that, but they can't quite make a connection with the patient.
Right.
That's my job, is to, some nurses are just naturally nurturing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's, so that's another thing that I do.
It's an interesting
Um,
acting assignment, though, as well, because I think it would take an actor to do that. You have to go there and portray someone who has an illness or an ailment or something, and try to make it real.
well, and it's very different with each. I could do, you know, one of the simulations I do is a post-op pain, where I'm in a lot of pain and nobody can figure out why. So the nurses have to figure out what to do with me. And each time I do it, it's different because I'm reacting to what I'm getting from these nurses. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's never quite the same. It's really just an improv, and I'm reacting to what I get from them, and then I sit down with them and talk to them about uh, how they did. So I
For
really
anyone
dig
who's
that job.
Yeah, for anyone who's ever been in the hospital, you know that having a nurse who has that little extra calming personality, it helps because no one wants to be in the hospital, and when you have someone who makes you feel safe, it's
Exactly.
yeah. And
I
what else
also
are you?
Well, I also do that with doctors at UCLA and at the Veterans Hospital. You know, at the Veterans Hospital, I may play a patient who's, you know, who needs his meds, who's been sitting in the lobby for, you know, 3 hours waiting to get his meds, and he's kind of psychotic, you
Mhm.
know, and depressed and all, you know, so it's really, it's really nice, you know, it's really good hard acting work, and it's very
Yeah,
rewarding for the people who we're working with. So I like it.
yeah, I could imagine. It's fascinating, something that I never would have thought of. And somewhere there's a doctor saying, "I don't know what happened, but Damone gave me a really hard time about taking these pain pills today." Uh, but anyway, it's so great. And then there's also the nostalgia and the conventions and things, and people would love to meet
Right,
you, which is
right.
a big thing. It's an exciting thing, especially now, the collectible world and memorabilia and meeting people from. For some people, this is our golden age of those of movies, and people love to see you. And I know you enjoy meeting people. You embrace it. When I saw you at the Rainbow, which is so fun that you were hosting. And I made the joke that everyone makes. I had to. Oh, I bought scalp tickets outside, and you said, speaking of tickets, and and Robert had a handful of Vixen tickets for the whiskey that night. And to share the moment, Sean Clark said to me after, "He offered me tickets. I didn't get it, and now I would have took the tickets just to say that I got tickets from him." And of
Huh.
course I saved mine. But it's one of these things where you make a minute of your time makes people so happy, and hearing your voice
Mhm.
and seeing you relate to what for 43 years you've heard, but brings rewards to people, and you've keep going as well. It's not just that movie, acting, still acting, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I
I
did
mean,
a
I
couple of horror films in the last few years. One in Ohio, one in Georgia. I
mhm.
don't think anyone will ever see them, but you know, they're fun. Horror
Yeah,
films are fun.
no, and you get the right one. There's a cult following for that now too.
Jeez, man, I'll tell you, if you get the right horror film, you can travel all year long doing shows, man. They're very popular.
I see it. I mean, I go to these conventions and I see a movie I barely know, but doesn't matter. That actor is going to work in those things forever. Which was funny. There was a
Yeah.
time when it was kind of frowned upon. Ah, you don't want to be in these horror movies. Now everybody would love to be in it. Robert, I appreciate it so much. Is there anywhere that people can check you out? Is there anything to promote?
Well, to be honest with you, I left social media a few years ago. I got rid of all my accounts. Well, they're probably still there, but I don't know. I never look at them. And, honestly, I don't know. People seem to be able to get in touch with me when they want to get in touch with me.
Mhm.
And uh, otherwise, no, I'm not sure how I have nothing to promote at the moment. And, I'm not on social media. If you're interested, check out Papa's Kitchen, Poppas Kitchen.
Yeah,
That's my band online. We're on Spotify and all the
it's on
streaming channels.
it's on Spotify, and Robert has a YouTube channel. I don't know. I don't think you're active with it, but the videos of the band are there,
Yeah,
and
yeah, right,
there's some content between YouTube and Spotify.
right.
Papa's Kitchen. I'll put a link in the description so people can check it out. And you still play, so at some point someone can come see you play.
Yes, absolutely.
Robert, I thank you so much. I always feel when you talk to someone, I'm going to ask you questions that you've answered for 43 years, but I really appreciate you indulging me and letting me have this moment, and the audience, because so many people are touched by your work. Thank you so much.
All right, my friend. You take
And
care now.
thank you. And thank you, everyone watching, and we'll see you